If you want to win your fantasy match for week 7 of the fantasy season, I'm not going to hold you any longer. I have the running back rankings that are going to win you your matchups. Let's start it off. All right, so S tier, this is a pretty simple but easy choice, Saquon Barkley. So the most surprising team of the year has been the New York Giants. In general, Giants sitting at 5-1, and a big reason comes from Saquon. He's healthy, he's explosive, and the Giants have a great head coach. But fantasy-wise, Saquon is our RB1 going forward, and the Jaguars won't change that. They gave up 28 points to Miles Sanders, 18.8 points to Dameon Pierce, and Travis Etienne got 11.8 points. 10 carries, 86 yards, 8 yards per carry. Yeah, next we got Austin Ekeler. And even in the ugly game from the Chargers, he still performed. I mean, he always gets his work. And I mean, he had 16 targets last week, 10 receptions with 14 carries. And I think he should even find more success with the Seahawks allowing the 9th most points to running backs on the season. Yeah, in a game that should be high scoring fair, I think Eckler's a good choice to make. I think you should start him. Just maybe. Coming up in the S tier, we got Josh Jacobs. Yes, the Raiders running back. And the Raiders are going against the Houston Texans, who allow the most points of fantasy running backs on the year. The only running back who didn't perform well against them was the Jaguars duo in week 5, and that was just an ugly game in general. And with the recent success of Jacobs and his overall volume of 20 plus carries a game and 5 receptions in the last 2 games he played, he is due for a big game after suffering a heartbreak defeat against the Chiefs. Next, we got Christian McCaffrey, and I was very wrong about C-Mac. He is matchup proof, he is QB proof, he has balled out this year. He's the second most targeted running back and 4th in scrimmage yards this year, and he can stay in any game plan, since he's the every down back for the Panthers and arguably the most dangerous receiver once he gets the ball in his hands. And even against the Buccaneers, who should dominate this whole game, it doesn't matter because even if they're down by like 30, C-Mac will get catches out of the backfield, just what he does. He's an easy target for quarterbacks. So yeah, great play for him. And next, coming back into the fantasy realm of elites, we got Alvin Kamara. With 42 carries and 15 targets in the last 2 weeks, like I said, Kamara is back. And without Jarvis Landry and Michael Thomas, his production should continue given the team is battling some serious injuries right now. Moving on to the A tier, I got Derrick Henry. In the 11 games Derrick Henry has started against the Colts, he has put up 100 yards in 6 of the 11 games and scored a touchdown in 5 of the 11 games. Derrick Henry has gone over 22 points in the last 3 games. And if you like those odds and stats for the most part, you shouldn't have a problem starting him this week. I mean, just last week, the Jaguars team combined for over 200 rushing yards and giving up multiple plays to Travis Etienne and JaMychal Hasty. Yeah, this should be a good time for Derrick Henry and the Titans. Next in the A tier, I got Joe Mixon, a guy that I was so trying to get in all my fantasy leagues, and I did in one of them because his production, his volume is second to none. And I expect big games coming forward for this offense as they're finally hitting their ceiling again. And I mean, he's 4th in carries on the season. He gets solid work as a pass catcher. And the Falcons, they're not the best defense. I mean, the 49ers rushing attack was stifled last week, which is very impressive, but I believe it was just because they abandoned it so early. And teams in general, if you look at the stats, they just don't run that much against the Falcons. It might be because the Falcons run the ball and control the clock a lot. I don't know, but teams only run the ball about 19.7 times against the Falcons, which is 10th lowest in the NFL. But a team like the Bengals knows how to stick to their game plan, especially with Joe Mixon. And even with his lowest rush count of the season with 8 carries last week, he still managed to put up 14.8 points. So yeah, I think another big game for Joe Mixon is on the way. And next, I called it last week, Rhamondre Stevenson showed up. Without Dameon Harris in his backfield, he has logged an 18.50 point game, 23.10 point game, and even if Dameon Harris returns this week, the Patriots will take advantage of the Bears' 8th easiest matchup for fantasy running backs on the season. And this game will not be close. I really don't think it will be close. And based on the dominant play of the Patriots, they should continue to run the ball to Rhamondre Stevenson. And yeah, if they blow the Bears out, they're going to keep running the ball and feeding Rhamondre, giving us more fantasy points. Against the Panthers, Leonard Fournette had a 4-point performance, and then later on this season, he had a 23-point performance. With the Panthers being the 6th easiest matchup for fantasy running backs, he should find some success, especially with the amount of receptions and targets he's getting this year. Geez, I did not see this coming. I mean, he is 3rd in targets among running backs, only behind C-Mac and Austin Ekeler. Rounding off this A tier, we got Nick Chubb, and he finally had a bad fantasy performance last week. And in my last video, I did say it was impossible. I didn't think it would be 7.5 points bad. But, I mean, it's not the worst thing ever. But anyway, this week he's going against the Ravens. And the Ravens have honestly been pretty good in stopping Nick Chubb. I mean, he didn't score a single touchdown or get over 60 yards rushing against the Ravens in the last 2 matchups last year. But, I mean, it's Nick Chubb. The dude's a rumbling, stumbling machine. You got to start him. Moving on to the B tier, we got our biggest mover on this list, Kenneth Walker. 2 breakout performances, and now he finds himself moving up in the rankings rather quickly. He forced 12 missed tackles last week, already looking like a mini beast mode out there. And the Chargers aren't a good rushing defense by any means. They give up 5.8 yards per carry and allow the 4th most fantasy points to running back on the season. So I expect Walker to continue his success. Next on my B tier, hopefully he plays this week, Jonathan Taylor. So against the Titans in the first matchup this year, he only got 2.8 points, which is very embarrassing for the whole Colts general. And I don't think this will happen again. But last year we saw the same thing happen. Earlier in the season he had a 7-point performance, but managed a 19-point performance in their second match. And honestly, you rarely see offensive stars get stifled 2 times against a divisional opponent. So hopefully he returns with a bang, or you might have drafted a bust. Moving on, we got Ezekiel Elliott, who had a pretty good performance for once. Yes, let's clap it up for him. But yeah, with a solid 15-point performance last week, he should find more success against the Lions. I mean, this team allows the most rushing yards per game and allows the most points per game in general as a team. And I find it hard to believe that Zeke will not notch at least 1 rushing touchdown. With his usual 70 rushing yards he gets, I mean, he's gotten it in 3 of the last 4 games, which is pretty good. So you at least got 7 points, hopefully. And in the same spot as I had him in last week, surprisingly, we got Breece Hall again. And this is not a knock for him. I mean, he's playing great, but against an elite Broncos defense, I think it's more of a compliment to him than anything else. I mean, the Broncos have struggled against the run this year. I mean, Josh Jacobs, 20-plus point performance. Jeff Wilson had 10-point performance, and Ekeler had a 19-point performance. But most of that was coming out of the backfield catching the balls. And Breece Hall does a little bit of that, but not the same volume Ekeler does. But Breece Hall is the focal point of this Jets offense, and he's the real deal. And he ran over 100 yards last week against the Packers, who I think are even better run defense. So yeah, and finalizing this B tier, we got a bunch of running backs, I guess, returning this week. DeAndre Swift, hopefully. And I mean, if he returns from injuries against the Cowboys, the Lions will have all their weapons back with Amon-Ra in, and their offense should be electric again. The Cowboys defense does allow the 5th least amount of points to running backs, but this offensive line is second to none when it comes to run blocking. And if you don't remember, Swift is a very good running back and still effective in catching balls out of the backfield. So yes, you start DeAndre Swift if he plays. Moving on to the C tier running backs, probably the biggest mover on this whole list, Aaron Jones. Where has he been? Where has the Packers offense been? We got no direction on this offense, and no one's going to like Aaron Rodgers when he's actually mad. You thought he was mad early? No, he's just a dick. And Aaron Jones has only had 2 good games out of the 6 he's had on the season. But a team like the Commanders should relieve some of the stress the Packers are feeling. You know, I mean, get them back in the W column against a very easy opponent. And next we got Dameon Pierce, the rookie from the Texans. And I honestly do like him, but like, given the situation, given the Raiders coming back after the heartbreaking performance, they're going to play lights out, honestly, I think. And yeah, the Raiders just don't allow big games to running backs. So I think he'll get double-digit points, but he will not perform at the top of his capabilities like he usually does. That is just my opinion. Anyway, a guy I drafted in the first round, sadly, Najee Harris. Oh my gosh, it's sad to say that I drafted him that high. The Steelers actually won last week, which is very impressive, but Harris got into the end zone, which skyrockets his value by so much given they can't do much on offense. But with 2 hard matchups out of the way, he gets an easier opponent in the Dolphins, who allow the 4th most rushing yards to opposing running backs. So hopefully Najee Harris gets a touchdown, gets rushing, and gets a couple targets out of the backfield. I mean, like, his production has gone down so much, it's sad to say. I mean, hopefully it goes well. And now rounding off this C tier was a guy I was super wrong on. And yes, I told everyone to start him, but I also started him myself, so I'm with you. I lost with you. I lost both my leagues because of him. He had a .5 performance. You got to be kidding me. So yeah, I feel like the 49ers just abandoned the run way too early. I mean, Jeff Wilson had 7 carries in the game. That's awful. And relied too much on Jimmy Garoppolo to throw the ball. I mean, 41 passing attempts for Jimmy Garoppolo. Does that really feel like a game you're going to win? Ask yourself that. No. But anyway, against the Chiefs, I think he can still rebound. I mean, he's still playing over 50% of the snaps. Tevin Coleman got a little bit too much touches in there. But yeah, I think Jeff Wilson will have I don't even know at this point. And now finalizing this list is the D tier running backs, which is like, I guess, the worst players you could start at the running back position, but still viable. We got Raheem Mostert. I don't know where Chase Edmonds went, but yeah, Raheem Mostert is getting the bulk of the carries, the bulk of the volume. He's just playing more snaps. So there's some potential there, I guess. He had a 100-yard performance against the Bengals, so yeah, that's pretty good. And next we got James Robinson. I mean, the Jaguars, like I said, with Christian Kirk, just look worse and worse every week. And the Giants' defense is actually really good right now. And the Giants' defense only allows 18.8 points per game on the season, which is 7th in the league. And with Robinson not getting a touchdown in a game, his value plummets by a lot, given he's not running the ball a lot. He's not getting a ton of catches out of the backfield. and his snap count has dropped as well, as he only played 43% of the snaps last week, and Travis Etienne also outperforming him as well, so he could lose the starting job and lose a bunch of his snaps any day now. And with Brian Robinson Jr., I actually like him. It's really annoying because the Commanders have like a 3 running back committee. I mean, Brian Robinson got the goal line snaps last week. He got the touchdown last week. He gets the majority of the carries out of the backfield. It's just with Gibson, McKissick are taking so much of his receiving snaps, it dwindles Robinson's value. In a game this week against the Packers, they could get out of hand and very ugly for the Commanders. But yeah, Brian Robinson, it's just, there's too many running backs taking away potential yards for him. It's finally our biggest mover of the whole week. Someone I had ranked in the A tier last week is now the bottom of the D tier, Clyde-Edwards-Helaire. The 49ers, who they're playing this week, rank as the number 2 run defense in the entire NFL, and Clyde's only managed 8.3 points in the last 2 weeks combined. It looks like he's not going to be that guy going forward. I mean, we love to see what he did early on, but it's a little unpredictable. But based on his performances lately, not a good play whatsoever.